Hi guys, so today we're doing the upper limb fractures, and the first case we have is the clavicle. Now, what is the clavicle fracture? First, read the case. A 24-year-old male presents with the ER after a fall from a bike, landing directly on his left shoulders. He complains of pain, swelling, and difficulty moving the left arm. On examination, there is visible deformity and tenderness over the mid shaft of the left clavicle. Now, why is as you can see in the X-ray, it's very easy to tell that the clavicle is fractured. Why does the middle third of the clavicle get fractured? Because as you can understand, when we did the osteology of the clavicle, it's in the shape of the S. The the medial part is concave and the lateral part is convex. So when the union of the two parts acts as the weakest point of the bone, and it takes most of the impact when you fall on an outstretched hand, or you get direct trauma. So as you can see here, the common site is the middle third, and mechanism FOOSH means fall on outstretched hand. So if I'm falling and I'd use my hand to uh, take the impact of my fall, all of it travels to my clavicle, and the union where the two ends meet, that is the area where most of the impact is um, withstood or withstanding. So that's why that part breaks. Okay. So now we use like a sling as a treatment mostly, and we give this specific kind of figure of eight bandage for the clavicle fracture. Now, why, when do we give ORIF? And by the way, what is ORIF? I'll be saying ORIF a lot in this lecture. And ORIF is basically open reduction and internal fixation. Open reduction basically means when you surgically expose a part that was injured, and you align the broken bone fragments, and you do this so that there's no like problem for risk of non-union. Risk of non-union means that the bone does not get repaired in the exact position that it should have been repaired. So when we said ORIF, there was open reduction and then there was internal fixation. What is internal fixation? It means stabilizing the fracture using hardware like plates, screws, or rods. When you become a house officer and you go into the rotations, you will see that we use plates, screws, and rods to fix the bones. Now, we basically use ORIF in displaced, unstable, or complicated fractures with conservative methods like bandage, sling, like casting. They're not enough, right? So ORIF is only indicated in clavicle fractures if there's an open fracture, or if there's a neurovascular compromise, or if there's severe displacement or a comminution, or if you see that there's a risk of non-union. Moving on, the next fracture, we have a proximal humerus fracture. And as you can see in the image, I hope you can see that there's a fracture here, right? So 68-year-old female slipped in the bathroom and fell on her outstretched right hand. Now, when you fall on the outstretched right hand, you have a lot of areas that will be taking the impact. Sometimes you'll have the radius being fractured. Most of the times you'll have the clavicle shaft, clavicle shaft being fractured. Sometimes you'll have the humerus, proximal humerus being fractured, right? So you should definitely get an X-ray of the entire upper limb when you have a fall on the outstretched hand. She presents with severe shoulder pain, swelling, and inability to lift the right arm. X-ray reveals a displaced proximal humerus fracture involving the surgical neck, as you can see here, right? So this humerus is a little bit displaced also, and the fracture is very easy to see here. Now, the proximal humerus fracture is common in elderly people. Why? Because of osteoporotic bone. We can have a surgical treatment or a conservative treatment. The nearest classification is not important for you at this point. So it's seen in like osteoporosis patients or high impact trauma. If it's a younger adult, it will be a high impact trauma for proximal humerus fractures. It may involve the anatomical neck or surgical neck or the tuberosities, so the greater or lesser trochanter. The management is just use a sling and give physiotherapy. Or if it's a displaced fragment, um, then you might need hemiarthroplasty or ORIF. ORIF, as I told you, it was open reduction, internal fixation. Now you have the humeral shaft fracture. Now, a 35-year-old construction worker fell from a ladder and landed on his outstretched arm. arm. He presented with mid-arm pain, swelling, and inability to move the limb, along with wrist drop. Examination and X-ray confirm a mid-shaft humeral fracture with suspected radial nerve involvement. Now, as we studied that in the area of the humeral shaft, we had a spiral groove, which had the radial nerve running in it. Now, the humeral shaft fracture, the mechanism is that the patient gets a direct blow or fall, and the complication is always a radial nerve injury, which results in wrist drop. The treatment will be bracing or ORIF, open reduction internal fixation, right? Moving on, we have this is a supracondylar fracture, as you can see here. This is mostly seen in pediatric patients. It's the most common elbow fracture in children who are 5 to 10 years old. Okay, it's the most common fracture in children who have an elbow fracture and they're 5, 10 years old. A 7-year-old boy fell off a swing onto his outstretched hand and now complains of severe elbow pain and swelling. The limb is held in flexion with limited movement and tenderness above the elbow. X-ray confirms a displaced supracondylar fracture of the humerus. Neurovascular status is being closely monitored. Again, FOOSH means fall on outstretched hand. Now, there's often pediatric supracondylar fracture often happens from falling on an outstretched hand. We have a Gartland classification that I don't think you should know at this stage. Now, there's a high risk of brachial artery injury and a median nerve injury because they're both running in this area, right? So you also have a risk of compartment syndrome. Then there's a treatment that if you have a type 1 kind of fracture, you will immobilize the joint. And if you have a type 2 or type 3 fracture, you will use closed reduction and percutaneous pinning or ORIF. For you guys at this point, identifying the supracondylar fracture is enough, guys. Moving on, we have a Monteggia fracture dislocation. Now, Monteggia fracture dislocation is the fracture of the proximal ulna with anterior dislocation of the radial head. A 10-year-old boy fell while playing and landed on his outstretched arm. He presents with pain, swelling, and deformity in the forearm, along with limited elbow movement. X-ray reveals a fracture of the proximal third of the ulna with anterior dislocation of the radial head. Now, this is a classic case of Monteggia fracture dislocation where the proximal third of the ulna is fractured with anterior dislocation of the radial head. Can you see that the radius is anteriorly displaced here? Now, the definition is the proximal ulnar fracture with radial head dislocation. Mechanism, direct blow or fall on outstretched hand. Treatment is open reduction, internal fixation of ulna, and radial head reduction. So, mechanism is that there's a fall on outstretched hand with forearm in hyperpronation. It requires ORIF of the ulna, and the radial head usually reduces spontaneously. Moving on, the next one, before we go on to the next fractures, we should know this X-ray that is labeled a bit. Now we have these carpal bones. We can see that this is the lunate bone and this is the scaphoid bone, which are involved in making the wrist joint with the radius, right? So as you can see, this is the radio-ulnar joint. This is the sigmoid notch on which the ulna articulates with the radius. This is the lunate fossa, and this is the scaphoid fossa present on the radius for the wrist joint. And this is the ulnar styloid process. If you know these bones on the X-ray, it will be easy to study the next fractures that are coming up. So first of all, we have the nightstick fracture. Now look at the case. A 30-year-old male was struck on the forearm with a blunt object during a physical altercation. He presents with localized pain, swelling, and tenderness along the mid shaft of the ulna. X-ray confirms an isolated non-displaced fracture of the ulnar shaft, characteristic of a nightstick fracture. Now, as you can see, this police baton or a nightstick, this is the nightstick through which the anatomists have named this fracture nightstick fracture. It's always an isolated mid-shaft ulnar fracture. It's common from defensive injury, like if you block something coming towards you, a blunt object or something with your arm like this, right? So you just need to how to treat it. You just need to stable it and manage conservatively with the cast. If the fracture is displaced or unstable, then you can use open reduction internal fixation. So we can just see nightstick fractures are isolated fractures of the ulna, typically transverse and located in the mid diaphysis, and usually resulting from a direct blow. It is a characteristic defensive fracture when the patient tries to ward off an overhead blow from an assailant or someone who's hitting you, brandishing a bar-like weapon. Okay. So moving on. Now we have two fractures, the Colles fracture and the Smith's fracture. Now the Colles fracture happens when you keep your hand, um, when you keep your hand in an outstretched form, right? That's when the Colles fracture happens. And the Smith's fracture happens when the radius is dislocated on the inside, on the inner side of on the palmar side. So that happens when you have a flexed hand and you keep your flexed hand on the ground when you're falling. So look at this radius, how it's displaced here. Now, when you get a Colles fracture, the distal radius fracture, it's always 2.5 centimeters proximal to the wrist joint. A 65-year-old woman slipped on a wet floor and fell on her outstretched hand. She presents with wrist swelling and a dinner fork deformity. You always get a dinner fork deformity with the Colles fracture. This does not happen with any other fracture. X-ray confirms a Colles fracture, distal radius fracture with dorsal displacement. So when they say dorsal displacement, can you see that on the Colles fracture, the radius is being dorsally displaced, and in the Smith's fracture, the radius is being palmarly displaced, right? So it's always a dorsal displacement and angulation of the distal fragment. Now I told you it's always 2.5 centimeters within proximity to the wrist joint. The mechanism is fall-on for outstretched hand. It's common with elderly females. There's a dinner fork deformity present. Treatment is close reduction and casting or surgery, right? Moving on to the Colles fracture. We're still at the Colles fracture. You can see the same image here, and they're showing you on a lateral X-ray that this is dorsally displaced, right? The radius is always dorsally displaced. Here also, they're trying to show you the dorsal angulation of the displaced fractured radius. Moving on, now we have the Smith's fracture. Now look closely that there's a volar or plantar displacement of the radius when it comes to the Smith's fracture, because you're falling onto the flexed hand. Okay. So moving on to the Smith's fracture, a 55-year-old man fell backwards onto his flexed wrist during a bathroom slip. He presents with pain, swelling, and deformity of the distal forearm. X-ray reveals a Smith's fracture, a fracture of the distal radius with volar anterior displacement of the distal fragment. So whenever you have this volar or anterior displacement of the radius, you have a Smith's fracture. It's a distal radius fracture. If you remember, the Colles fracture was 2.5 centimeters within the wrist joint. But on Smith's fracture, it's a distal radius fracture, but an anterior or volar displacement of the radius is always seen. It's often caused by a fall on a flexed wrist, not outstretched. It's always on a flexed wrist. So definition is distal radius fracture with volar displacement, reverse Colles. Mechanism, fall on flexed wrist. It's also called reverse Colles, right? Because now it's the opposite of Colles. Less common than Colles. Colles fractures is more common. How do you treat it? You treat it with reduction and immobilization or open reduction internal fixation. Here you can see the radius is volarly displaced, right? That's it, guys. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me end it.